you do that? How did you do that?
All right, so we're on. You're going to carry me today, Xynode, because I'm on my EU character, because it's EU character copies.
I'm going to carry you with my my trap build.
Okay.
Finn's going to love this.
You should have invited. Yep. And then do you...
Oh, I don't need ice is your name?
Wow. And do you know what dungeon you want to run?
I would like to go through... Let's go through Unhallowed Grave, because I want to show the Batman mechanics.
Yeah, we're like a perfect... Everybody's running this. And then are we doing this on vet or normal? Oh, Finn says we're doing it on normal.
I'm on normal. We can do whatever. It depends on how long we got.
Want to see the mechanics?
Let's not
Can you
terrorize
slow down?
We'll do it on normal just because that may push us in, and we have something right after this one too.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We can do it on normal for demonstration purposes if you want. There's no need for us to show off.
Okay. Then let's do that.
Will,
Finn's there, so let's teleport to
we'll
him.
appreciate it anyway. They know we can hammer it and speedrun it, but we don't want to give that away.
Yeah.
So hit P, and then you navigate to line A. Right click travel up.
So before we get going, I think the big bits that I need to get through, just so that I feel like I'm worthwhile on this run, is the kickoff to the Dark Heart of Skyrim. So this is going to be much more heavily integrated into the overall story. That's one of the big differences between last year and this year is the dungeons, the DLC, the chapter are all part of this cohesive narrative, and even more so. So you're going to meet characters here and in Ice Reach that will follow you throughout the remainder of the year, which is really cool. And then the other big bit is this is also the first update that contains some of the major performance improvements. The patching overhaul is the big one. So that is roughly 16 gigabytes smaller on PC.
Yep.
And 30 gigabytes smaller on console.
Ooh.
Yes.
Substantial amount.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then as a result of all of that work, load times are significantly better. I'm sure you noticed that already, just farting around PTS. On console, it's really noticeable as well. And then the frame rate just overall is better as well. There's nowhere near the amount of spikes that you would get in frame rate, so it just feels smoother, runs better. And players they're going to notice that. This is the first big one that is super noticeable, which is great.
Nice. I can say personally, obviously this isn't live at the moment, so it's a different test, but in comparison to your previous PTS updates, what you mentioned there about spikes, I've seen very, very little.
Yeah.
It's a substantial difference already. So if that does translate to live, that's going to be a massive, massive improvement. There's going to be a lot of happy people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic, cautiously excited.
Of course.
In all my tests on PTS, it's way, 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 way better. It's in the 30 to 40% range better, which is massive. So, at scale, we'll see how that changes. But overall, super positive, super awesome things. And this is just the start. We have a whole bunch more planned for the rest of the year. So, this year is shaping up to be awesome.
Nice.
I think those are the big bits for me. We're going to let Mike play tour guide and talk, and then we'll just have fun blasting through the dungeon and doing things.
And killing Finn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, probably Jeremy more than Finn, but...
Is he the Lobie? Who's the Lobie?
Me.
You are a
That's
tiny
rich.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I only have 498 CP. It's my EU character, so...
Yeah, I didn't bring my EU one. He's higher than yours too. I knew Dev didn't play the game.
Oh.
Oh man, ouch.
You actually got there pretty quick. You're on NA mostly, aren't you?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, he's like 25,000 on NA. Anyways, so this is Unhallowed Grave. This is one of the dungeons, of course, in Harrowstorm. So these two characters here, the idea for this is centuries ago, great calamity happened, and something evil was buried in here. And the Red Guard and the Bankerai Legion decided to appoint a group of people called the Pyre Watch to watch over this place, make sure nobody comes in and nothing comes out. But over the centuries, kind of like why the Pyre Watch exists has been lost to time. It's very much we've always done it this way, so people have been named Pyre Watch, and they don't even know what the heck they're doing here anymore. So Shalaria was kind of, I don't want to say lazy, but she wasn't as diligent in her tasks as she should have been. Somebody broke in, so now she's coming over here to like, oh no, I had one job to do, and I have to come in here and find out what's going on. And she meets this dude named Finnigan, who's obviously a vampire, and he is in here too. So they, after talking, he says that he tracked this group of Nord mercenaries called the Draugr here, and they realize they're on the same side. So, and we can keep going now. And what you realize is there's kind of a mystery as to why the Draugr are here. But also, Finnigan is much in keeping with the idea that we want to carry the story forward. Oh, those guys died fast. Carry the story forward throughout the year. Unlike Rastone, so in Rastone you kind of did you help Thoraya. She goes and puts the two halves of the Rastone together, and then you leave. And Thoraya's like, all right, I'm out. Whereas in this, we wanted to introduce characters that are going to persist throughout the entire story. So in Ice Reach, you meet up with Lyris, and in this dungeon, you meet up with Finnigan, and he is actually going to persist through the other stories. So it's cool that we're going to, like I said, bring the whole thing together. You're going to see characters, you're going to be with them throughout the entire year. Obviously, we have the grappling hooks. This is one of those cool things as a dungeon team. The minute we saw it put in, we were like, oh, we got to see it.
I wondered when you were going to use this again, because it was in the story, wasn't it?
It was in a Dragon. Yeah, so, yeah, we instantly were like, the minute we saw it kind of going in, and it's really because of timetables and stuff like that, the first time we could get in, we were like, all right, this is super cool, and we're gonna try to kick it up a little bit and take it up a notch and use it in boss fights and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil that because we're not there yet, but I was pretty impressed with the fact that it was in a fight rather than just running around while you're doing quests.
Yep.
Being an actual mechanic was really cool.
Have you done the secrets? I'm not going to talk about the secrets.
I'm not going to spoil the secrets on the video.
Other than there are secrets, yeah, that's it. They're secrets. Yay! Go do those. So this guy right here is Hakram the Howler. He's one of the Draugr. Actually, he's pretty cool. If you see the body markings that he has, those are the body markings you get for doing the veteran version of the dungeon.
Oh, that's the unlock?
Yeah,
nice.
That's the cosmetic unlock. And it's not a skin. They're actually body markings, so they can play well with skins sometimes. Right. And they're actually like this textured red, which looks really, really cool. Also, the Draugr are necromancers. But also, as this guy's last name alludes to, some of them are werewolves too. And I believe I called this out on ESO Live too. But these are skeletal werewolves. So these are creatures that they're just using the bones that are here, and it's pretty interesting that they're werewolves.
Okay.
I would.
He has a very original name, by the way.
Hakram?
Yeah. No, the Howler part.
No, right? He's like, hey, what can I scare people but not let them know I'm a werewolf? I got it. Howler. Success. Actually.
I'm gonna stand in stuff so Jeremy can heal.
Make him feel useful.
That's right.
You're learning how to play, Jeremy. This is awesome.
That they will help.
So, I don't want to go over top of you because you're probably going to go more into detail with this fight, but what made you guys decide to, instead of having the dungeons kind of side-ish stories, why did you decide that it would be a good idea to make it part of the whole year? Was it based on last year's feedback, or was it a decision that was made?
That was the biggest part. Is a lot of the feedback we got was it was cool. It was a year-long story, but the dungeons didn't feel like they were part of the story. They were just kind of side content. Okay. And the same thing with the Dragonhold DLC. That was the other one, which was, this is a cool story and whatnot. And it was really cool that there's that, final finale part once you've unlocked everything, but it didn't feel like it was telling the same story.
Okay, so this is to be more involved with the overall.
Yeah, we'll take it up. Like last year was super successful for us, and players really loved the story. And so this is kind of the next iteration, that next evolve.
Oh, I still think that's one of the coolest models in the game.
What, the werewolf?
Yeah, he's called Juffy, by the way, if you didn't know that already. Yeah.
That was I thought Juffy was the Argonian behemoth.
Juffy.
Ah, sorry.
He's a fluffy Daedroth. He's Juffy.
Gotcha. Yeah, this guy is super cool. So yeah, when we talk about the kind of whole year story, we have the integrating these more and it still kind of follows the same model of Rastone in that you're discovering what a Harrowstorm is.
Mm-hmm.
As in both of the pieces that you learn about in these two dungeons kind of lend to that knowledge, but the characters that we introduce are not one-shot characters. They carry the story forward. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, so to speak. Gotcha. Speaking of the what you learn in these dungeons, there's these urns that are around. These are gray reliquaries.
Mm-hmm.
Super important later on.
Yeah, it looks like, well, I know I've seen how you kind of, we've watched or viewed, if you like, how you guys kind of think and present your content. So if people are paying attention enough, they can figure out that that's important. But you've also sidelined this to make it look like, hey, they're just maybe decoration or art.
Right.
So they're cleverly placed. It looks like someone who hasn't got a clue could just go, oh, never mind, they're cool. And then someone who's paying attention will be like, what did they do?
Right. And actually what's going to be great is part of that's kind of like what we like to do. So like the same as the werewolf skeletons that are in here, the gray reliquaries that you see in here, we want those to be parts where, yes, it kind of looks like set decorations. Like, oh, it's a new urn that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
And when you actually see it later on, you're like, oh, those were important, or those were significant. So yeah, the idea being that you don't necessarily know right off the bat that stuff is important. Yeah.
I did that on live stream and I had no idea it could be done.
Oh yeah,
I was in the middle of a boss fight. I was in the middle of the boss fight and I jumped by accident off the cliff and I double tapped it and did it in the air.
Yep. Yeah, it's fun when you do that kind of stuff.
It was really awesome.
Rob,
that's one of
whenever
those things.
He plays, refuses to not jump before he does stuff.
Rob
Garrett. Yeah. And sometimes he dies because of it, but
it's because he's not good enough.
That's right. I'll make sure to tell him that.
Tell him.
So this is a boss telegraph mechanic where we want to teach you to go up here and use these things so that then this guy gets a damage shield and you have to burn through the damage shield for him to stab the ground. And this is to telegraph it so that when you get to the kiln boss, you kind of realize what to do. I understand that these sigils are usable actually going forward, and actually next PTS, these symbols on the ground are actually not usable. You actually have to do the mechanics. So the idea is a lot of people don't look up, but if you get to this point and you can't use the symbols on the ground, you're going to have to look around for how to do it. So then you'll go up there and use the correct symbol. And hopefully when you get to the kiln, that'll give you an indicator that you need to look up.
Gotcha. I'm not going to spoil that in my own...
It's one of those weird things about our games. People just don't like to look up.
This is true. I'm not going to speak about what happened on the stream yet because we're not in that fight, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. This is the fight coming up, I believe.
Yeah, it is. This is very interesting. I was quite impressed with the idea behind this one.
Yeah, and I think Rich talked about it, that he went in here on PTS with some people, and didn't tell them anything, so they
Mhm.
wiped on this boss for a while.
For a half hour until they figured it out.
I tried really hard not to say anything.
Yeah.
I was on there myself, and I was like, all right, no spoilers, no spoilers, no spoilers. And I'm jumping around the room just to show people what's going on, and it was a struggle, but it was really fun.
So I am going to spoil this a little bit because I want us to get through this fight.
Of course.
Take 45 minutes. So if you look up, you of course you see the grapple points around the top, and this lends into what we just showed you, so that you travel up to these places. It'll reveal one of the symbols. We drag the guy to the symbol. He stabs the ground. We all don't die to fire.
Yep, which is
In
great.
theory.
For dying to fire, yes, I agree.
We have a healer, don't we?
Something like that. We have a person with heals on his bar.
Come on, test me.
I'm just kidding. You're doing. Look at that. We got lucky and stabbed it. Stabbed the correct one.
Perfect.
It's hacking.
You need to reveal it.
Sauce buffs.
Yeah. We'll see if we get lucky again. There's actually, I think, an achievement to not reveal the correct symbol.
Of course, you move all the stuff out of my AoE.
Well, I didn't even know you were doing anything.
I'm gonna have an episode about that for how
And
to
again.
get good. Don't worry.
How to get good? Oh, shit.
One again. Are you at one?
Nope.
Well, you're gonna catch on fire.
No, we're not. Now he's on one.
Oh, that was fun.
There we go. See? Oh, good.
It's a really awesome mechanic actually, because it forces people to pay attention, but it also doesn't make it quite a stack and burn for the tank.
Right.
So you,
I mean, that's part of what we were doing when we were going in here, is to say one of our general philosophies for dungeons really like movement. It's kind of sets a lot of our stuff apart
yeah.
than other.
It's one again.
No, it's not. It's 4. I'm just kidding. I know
I
it's
mean,
1.
you can leave it there if you want. I'll just shield up.
You're not gonna live, dude. That last tick's gonna kill you. There we go. There. Success.
It's quite interesting seeing a fight that isn't actually the last fight, being that mechanically heavy. Not extremely difficult once you understand what to do, but also you do have to pay attention to mechanics, otherwise you're screwed.
Yep.
Very much like the Lurcher boss, I don't recall his name, but Moonhunter Keep, where you have to basically split up and interrupt or kill Spriggans and Stranglers and such. There's a condition: if you don't follow it, you're stuffed. I kind of do like that because it forces people to understand that there are mechanics involved rather than just hit stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we try to do that and take the edge off quite a bit in normal, so it's not so bad, but then leave some of that danger. Like in this one, even in normal, if you don't pay attention and kind of do the mechanic, we give you a little bit of time. If you're not paying attention and doing the mechanic, you're gonna have a bad time.
To me, that feels like you're engaging more in the game. It feels like you're playing it rather than just. I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but hitting a dummy and then treating the boss like a dummy.
Right.
I like the fact that you have to engage in the content to some extent and figure out what you're supposed to do, or actually apply some form of mechanics rather than just run up, nuke it, and run away. It is fun to nuke stuff if you can, but the heavier the mechanics, even if it's on an easy scale, the more interesting the fight is.
And we try to mix that up a little bit so that as you're going through here, some bosses are more like this boss we're coming up to now, the Eternal Aegis, is kind of more of a I can sit here and do damage, and I have to deal with the mechanics doing, but it's not super mechanic heavy. And we try to break that up so that we give players that like the different play styles a chance to excel.
Yeah, but having that broken up into the dungeon itself is actually a benefit, because you do have that kind of, I can go hell for leather now if I want to, but I still need to know what I'm doing for the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it. This is a really cool fight. This is another very cool model, by the way.
Oh yeah,
I
love this
Vulcan Werewolf and this guy are very, very awesome. And this is in part of one of the new sets as well, isn't it? The Aegis set.
Yeah.
The medium one, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you reintroduced this guy, though, because when he came in the Thieves Guild, I wondered if you were going to use him much more.
We got a variant in Depths of Malatar, so the
That's true, yeah.
And we the Air Atronach is a variant of him and Hellra and
Yeah, it's essentially the same rig, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've used it a little bit, but yeah, we hadn't really used it in like this kind of like its classic form and what it looks like, the Eternal Aegis. So, and it made sense when we came in here. We were like, all right, let's, this is what the Red Guard would put in here to kind of protect this area, or the Bankerai Legion, as it is, would come in here and they would put these things in here. That's another thing too, is we have some kind of like mandates so that we say, right here you've got the Draugr-kin. When you see the Draugr-kin, you're not going to see the Grave Guardians together.
Yeah.
Because they're not working together. They're actually enemies in the thing. It's not like when we did Frostvault, where we kind of mandated you're not going to see the goblins and the Dwemer working together.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I remember that. Well, also on a design front as well, I like the fact that you even noted it just then, this is what the Red Guard would probably use to protect. You've made it very, very lore-friendly, and it makes sense along the way. It's not just, hey, here's a boss, hit it.
Right.
There is a reason for that specific boss, and the layout of it and everything is actually really, obviously, it's well thought out. But the audience might not, do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
There's a lot of detail in there if you look for it, or if you know how everything is supposed to work story-wise. It's really, really cool.
And I do like the idea that even some of the story elements, the werewolf skeletons and the little gray reliquaries, you might not get right away. Like I said, it all kind of looks like noise in the background or something, but it's all here for a reason. So even, if you go into the chapter and then you say, oh, I didn't even know that those things were a thing. And so, oh, here's Mr. Lonely. This guy, he's living his best life here. Just walking with the torch. By himself.
I feel bad every time we kill him.
Every time we kill him, I feel bad. It's just.
Did you put him on his own just so that the random Dragon Knight would Batman him with the ultimate? Because that's what I would have done if I was on a DK right now.
Every once in a while, we just stuff comes up. I don't know that it was super intentional to put that guy alone, and it just worked out kind of.
Yeah.
It was, and now he's Mr. Lonely, and we have to keep him there.
Don't change it, because I
absolutely
almost
not.
dropped an ultimate on his head.
Ah, that would be good.
And that
It's
would have
like
been
when you
bad, because
ultimate
we're
like
now on a
rat.
boss.
Yeah. So for this fight, this is where we take the grapple points to the next level. So you have the grapple points on the outside, you have the grapple points on the inside. Yeah, the boss is going to fill up the entire center with poison, which means we'll have to grapple point out, kill ghosts, grapple point back to the middle, and then he's going to do an explosion. Now, when he does the explosion, you got to hide behind these pillars. It's finicky. We know that. This is PTS. Actually, I think it's fixed next week's PTS, where it's a better protection kind of thing. What's going on? One little key indicator that you have here is if you have this little gold effect on you, when you're standing behind one of these pillars and he's doing his big thing, that means you're protected. Right.
Okay. When we first tried this on the first week, we were not aware of that, and what we did is we killed the ghosts. As soon as they died, we were fine.
You have to kill the wraiths, for sure. But the explosion part is what you need to stand behind these pillars to be protected from. So you basically, he's going to keep exploding over and over. So you wait for the explosion, then you run out, you kill the wraiths, and then you go and hide behind when he's going to do another explosion.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely, you're supposed to kill the wraiths to stop that from happening. But the part that was finicky is hiding behind these pillars when that explosion goes off.
Yeah, that wasn't clear to start with, but that makes sense.
All right, let's do this. Somebody attacked before me.
Wasn't me.
Probably Rich. He likes to do that.
It's fair play. You pull everything out of my AoEs, I pull the bosses before you're ready.
Hey, this boss is going to be in your AoE.
This is the fight I did the double jump Batman.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
How'd you die?
I did not.
Don't be
Apparently,
dead.
I have read the result.
Apparently I cannot Batman swing well.
I'm just gonna solo this. Every time we do this, somebody dies in this fight.
Usually because of hiding behind the.
It usually is the pillar. That is fair.
My bad. I was gonna
It's
res you.
You guys all died?
Yes. I was trying to pick up your creative director.
I'm a healer. I'm supposed to follow him, right?
At least we're all together.
Oh,
Yeah,
very red.
made my AoE res mileage out of that thing. Necro Tank was so good for press runs.
Yeah, it is.
And pug
AoE
runs.
res, so good.
Oh, don't talk to me about pugs.
All right, he's so if you see you'll kind of get like a gold effect around
Got
yourself,
it. Yep, that makes sense.
or you're gonna get eaten. Oh, you got it.
Mhm.
You're dying.
Okay, so, I mean, I can see the gold light once I get
Yeah.
close to it. That's
Got
obviously
one
your
more guy.
safety
All right.
area. I see
No,
it.
don't explode. You can explode. Oh, he is.
Boom!
Oh man. Oh, we have to go out.
All right, let's not screw this up this time.
I've got no gold stuff. Oh,
Well, you're
Batman. My bad.
have to go out.
I know. I
Okay.
knew that too.
I don't feel that
What a
bad
fail.
now.
What a fail.
You don't feel so bad now.
If the great Xynode's dying to it as well, then
On normal.
The great.
I'm normal. We're good.
You heard that, Finn.
I heard the great Xynode, right?
23k, is that all? He doesn't hit so hard. He wrecked me.
Yeah, he did.
Yes! Necro Res. Such a cool skill. I'm gonna make up for it and nuke him.
Well,
Here we go.
he's
I'll drop an
probably
ulti too.
gonna die. Just go ahead. Just he's dead. Yeah, there we go.
So,
Success.
that's a... I mean, the Batman side of that is something that I really, really, really like. I did not... I said it earlier at the beginning, I did not expect that to be in a mechanic. I wanted it to be, but I didn't expect it to be. And to that extent, where you do have to physically interact with that in the fight no matter what, adds an element of skill there. That's really, really cool. You just bounce off the wall.
Yeah,
it.
so this is what happens if you get to this. So this is one of those. Oh, don't do it. I'm there. Oh. So this is one of those things. This is, of course, the third secret. This is if you've done the secrets before this, you're allowed to get into Glory Sanctum. And this was a conscious decision too. Is we wanted to make sure that we highlighted that there was something here. There was a mystery here, and it was kind of obvious. So the idea is you walk up to this, you look at this door, and you go, "What is this?" And then you have to go and explore in the dungeon to find out what it is. And it was pretty funny because we didn't tell. We mentioned secrets. We didn't say anything. But I immediately started getting messages when this went up to PTS of people like, "Hey, is this in? Is this?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is in. You can do it." And they were like, "All right, we're gonna go look." And it did exactly what we wanted to. Is people were like, "All right, I want to find out what's behind this door."
Oh,
And then they went and they scoured the dungeon to kind of find the secret stuff. So did exactly what we wanted, and it was a cool moment to see people like, "Oh, I absolutely want to go see what this is."
Two things. One, and this is a positive thing, by the way, this is very reminiscent of stuff like DMC, where they lock the door and you've got to figure out what you do before they can open it. And the effect on it was very, very cool. Secondly, what a sneak. You can't see on the map what's in there.
Correct.
As soon as I went to the door, I was like, okay, where is it? What's on the map? What sort of size room is it? You can't see anything.
It's like we
gotta-
planned.
Open it, it'd be a big fist. Just knocks you across the room. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That was actually a conscious effort too, was to make sure that we didn't kind of tip our hand as to, so people would say, "Oh, look, whoever the cartographer of this map knew what was in there." We didn't want to do that. We wanted these to be secret reveals.
Completely uncharted.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
As a matter of fact, all the secrets are uncharted, so like you can't even see it on the map until you get there.
Good. Now someone's going to make an add-on with a map on it.
Yeah, right.
I hope not. No
Now they
spoilers.
are, since you just said it.
They're not watching this channel. It's fine. Boing. force of habit. There's so many of these coffers or
Yeah.
urns.
Yeah.
There might be a reason for that.
It
Might be a reason. Doing something important. There's Kalnar's research notes here. I just accidentally clicked on them. That's why I said that. I was like, oh, door. Nope, Kalnar's research notes. This is the Pit of Stars. This is Kalnar Tombskull. We kind of saw him a little bit earlier when he was rallying the troops. He's going to give you a little preview of what he does. He summons these skeletons. Those just disappear, but when he does summon the skeletons in the fight, they try to get powered up on these little circles here. So some of them turn into blast bones, so they get powered up and then they jump at a player and they explode. Some of them turn into big, beefy skeletons with two-handed weapons that are essentially like enraged that do a lot of damage. So if you don't do this right, and you don't defeat them before they get to these powered up circles, they're gonna be just another danger in the fight.
Okay.
So this guy, yeah, he has quite a few abilities. Standard kind of fare. He does have more health. This is another conscious decision where you're kind of challenge players to do damage over more time to bask in the glow of this boss fight.
Yeah.
Something
How much
like
health does he have on vet?
I think it's like 8 million or something.
Is that the same for hard mode?
No, it's harder. It's a higher part.
Nice. Oh,
And
this
he's
is
got
the
this.
coolest bit
The
ever.
thing.
I'm getting a good shot of this. Oh my face.
It was definitely a cool bit that we were. This is one of those things that I put out to my team and I'm like, hey, this is kind of the story of the dungeon we're doing. So what's everybody want to do? And Tony, the boss designer for this, is like, this is what I want to do, and I was like, that's
looking at me.
can we do that? And then we talked to the lore and art and everybody, and they were like, this is what we want to do, and they're like, that sounds cool. Let's do it. So, yeah, that's how that kind of all came about.
When I saw your preview trailer when you were in Vegas,
Yeah, and
I
it ended
saw
right
the
before
arms.
that.
Yeah.
I saw it. I was like, "There's no way that's a giant bone cloth." There's no chance. Then when that came up on live stream, it was amazing.
Yeah, so good, so good.
We are not good necromancers when he can pull out tricks like that.
Right? I mean, you just have to go to some ancient buried place and find this big oily pit that probably has a giant creature in it, and then resurrect that.
Go for a swim.
So, yeah, it's
dead
you're
in
gonna
there.
die.
Oh yeah.
I got you. Oh, I couldn't even
Ah,
target
no
down
way.
there. I tried to res.
It's too late now.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't even.
No,
can't.
I was. There's ideas. It's too late. I think you want people dead in there. But could you Batman the way out?
Nah.
That
There's
would
no-
be
there's
too
no-
good.
There's no poles here. Can't
You
grab
need to make it happen. I actually don't.
Nope.
But I looked
we don't-
for it. I learned something in a dungeon. Oh, Jeremy's trying
So-
to go mountain climbing.
Yep. It didn't work.
Alrighty, so that is Unhallowed Grave. You got the quick and dirty tour here.
That is absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
So released 24th for PC.
Yep.
Announced yesterday. So now
The
I can say
Yep.
it.
Attempt for console.
And 10th of March for console. So, as far as the performance side of things are concerned, is there? I need to ask this because otherwise people will be confused. Is there a reason why the console version is much more efficient in terms of space in comparison to PC? Because you've got a 16 gig reduction on PC, but a 30 on console. Is there a substantial reason for that, or is it just a case of getting rid of loads of trash that we don't need in the background?
It's a lot of duplicated data that we didn't need, and then just how the compression libraries worked, because part of the patching overhaul was changing a lot of the libraries that we use to compress the assets down. So like a zip file, we use something, something along those lines, but the libraries that we use were able to compress the data a little bit more than what we could before. So
okay, that makes sense, because one of the things I do tend to tell people to do on consoles specifically is every 3 to 6 months kind of just delete your game and reinstall it, because it tends to get rid of some of the back stuff. But obviously it looks like you're doing that by default anyway. Will that be something that they won't necessarily have to do anymore? Like once it's done, and every patch it will just get rid of the rubbish, or will we still need to kind of reinstall it occasionally?
You shouldn't have to reinstall it after this. I mean, one of the big reasons why we did the overall patching overhaul was so that patches going forward are smarter as well, so they'll be smaller.
Something I did notice on the PTS, I'm hoping that hopefully this will translate over to live, is you have two different duplications of servers on PTS, for example. Sometimes you have the EU copy, and sometimes you have the NA copy. Now, my particular location doesn't seem to affect me for certain consoles, but on PC I do have a much higher ping on the NA server, which isn't a problem for gameplay wise. I just adapt to it, but I do notice it. And previously on the NA transfer on PTS, I found some really large spikes, and I could really feel the difference versus the EU. At the moment, I'm not feeling any difference versus either one of them, so I'm actually in a really happy place with it. Performance is showing to be really, really consistent with both servers. For me, is that going to likely, you may not be able to answer this, is it going to likely improve the performance somewhat towards people in much, much further away countries like Australia, where their ping is really, really high?
Well, we're working on other things for Australia, because that's kind of a routing issue that we've been working on. But we didn't go and specifically look at any of that stuff for this, any of the routing stuff for this. What we looked at was, what are the types of messages that are being sent back and forth between client and server? How do we reduce some of those things? That's what a lot of the foundational work for the block changes were. We're looking at messaging and whatnot. So there's the messages being sent back and forth have not only been significantly reduced in size, but also just the frequency that we need to do it now because of how we changed some of the abilities. Okay. So that's why you're seeing some of those changes, or why it feels like you're doing some of those changes. And then the other part of that is just with the overall frame rate. And we've said this in the past before, that little frame rate monitor and ping monitor that you have in the UI, some of that is also tied to how often it can be updated in the frame because of the frame rate. And so now that the frame rate is a lot more stable, it's getting updated more frequently.
Okay. And I have to ask, because otherwise people will be screaming, you don't care about it. How is this likely to, in even a small scale, to affect Cyrodiil?
Well, there's gonna be the load stuff is going to make getting into and out of Cyrodiil faster, obviously.
Okay.
The traveling between keeps, that's going to help affect assets loading in and whatnot properly. The weird blurry texture stuff that you get sometimes, that should all be gone away. So all the loading of things should be better with the patching overhaul. And then this update also has the effects manager work in there, some of the frame rate improvements. So you should notice frame rates being better in those high traffic situations. So Trials and Cyrodiil especially.
Good, because I know you had minor updates recently towards that kind of stuff, and it is noticeable, especially during the Media Mayhem. Like last year to this year, there was a substantial difference. Sure, there was still lag and stuff, but that's going to happen. But it was much, much better. So if those types of areas are focused on, and like you say, obviously load screens, and then proper rendering of the textures and such, because you can get stuck on those and end up just running on the spot. If they're all going away, that will, in my opinion, or at least I think it will definitely help.
I don't know if they will 100% be gone, but they should be dramatically improved because things will load in more reliably. And then because we did the memory manager work and whatnot, especially as of yesterday's console patch, the out-of-memory errors should almost be eliminated at this point.
Excellent.
Good.
That's something I did notice a lot on console and somewhat on PC as well. It's easier to notice on PC if you're looking for it because you know what to look for. But if it's on a console, like, why is my game slow?
Yep.
And over time, it did progressively degenerate, especially more of raw cars and such. But
all that stuff should be better, and especially with the patch yesterday on console, all of that stuff should be much, much better.
Fantastic. Well, going forward, what I've seen so far is absolutely stunning. The 2 dungeons are really, really cool. Definitely like the new mechanics, especially the Batman side of things. How many, just to finalize this, without saying details, how much of a spoiler is this towards the upcoming content if you complete it and pay attention?
I don't know that it's a spoiler. It provides a lot of context and a lot of backstory. If you do the dungeons and you do the prologue quest, and then you go into the chapter, you're going to have basically all of the info you need. If you just do the chapter, you will come into it, you will get introduced to the story, and it will make sense, but you won't have that full, rich kind of tie-in of all of the things together.
So what you're telling me is people need to pay attention.
I mean, it's really up to you.
I mean,
Mike said that a lot in the run. Like, the more you pay attention, the more you really dig into and explore, the more you're going to get out of it, and everything is put in there for a reason.
So not
and it's
just
also
for lore
like,
heads.
Right. And it's also like a recognition kind of thing. Like you go through and you do these dungeons and you may see things and you're like, oh, those are cool or whatever. And then you go through and you're like, oh, hey, it's Finnigan, and he's going to talk to you and he's going to be like, hey, remember when we ran down Unhallowed Grave or something like that? Of course, that's not the way he talks, but like, you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be these acknowledgments that you've talked to him before, you've been with him before, you've done stuff with him before, and then you're going to see the gray reliquaries and how they're used, and you're going to be like, I know exactly where those came from. You know what I mean? And so it's mainly that recognition thing of like, I know where all of this stuff came from, so I get this kind of complete story of what are the storms and where do they come from and what is a gray reliquary, and hey, that's Venarian. Oh, Lyris is over here. Remember when we ran Ice Reach? Yeah, so you have all of this context. Whereas if you come to the chapters straight off, you're going to meet these characters for the first time, and there isn't that recognition.
So that's one of the biggest questions: is what is a Harrowstorm as far as the community is concerned? So do they fully find out what they are in this, or do they get a big hint?
It's in the 2 dungeons. If you do the 2 dungeons in the prologue, you'll know what a Harrowstorm is.
Excellent. That answers my question. I'm not going to tell anyone what it is. I'm just going to make sure they know that if they pay attention, they'll find out.
Yes.
Excellent. Right, well, I'm pretty much done with questions except for one.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, since Skyrim is kind of on the horizon, if you like, or underground, whichever way you look at it. Where's my mammoth?
It's both.
Where's your mammoth?
It's Skyrim now. Just make a giant pocket mammoth.
You're almost as bad as Ninja with his Lyris mount.
He got Lyris.
He did not get her as a mount, though.
Not a mount.
He did not get her as a mount. As a matter of fact, isn't the collector's reward a pocket mammoth? Don't you get a pocket mammoth? It's not a mount.
I knew that was coming. Do you know what? When it happened and I saw it announced, my other half came running down the stairs and she went, "You've got a mammoth mount." I said, "No, it's a pet. It's a pet."
Did you see the name of it?
Yes, I did. It looks really cool.
It's a sacrificial pocket
well
mammoth.
done.
I
saw what you did. Right, guys. I know you're obviously pushed for time. We're almost done anyway, I think. So I'm not going to keep you any longer, but thank you all very, very much for this. Much appreciated.
Yeah, it was fun.
Really looking forward to this going live.
Me too.
Here.
You just want to see everybody fail.
Yeah.
I think he just wants to see how everybody learns.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Those tears of joy that I like.
I've seen the tears. I've seen them.
There's a lot of tears before the tears of joy come, but it's the tears of joy I'm waiting.
Dear, oh dear. All right, then, guys. Well, thank you very, very much for your time. I don't think I have any follow-up questions right now, but if I do, I'll send you an annoying email.
Yeah, you totally can.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much.
Cool. Take care, bud.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.